Namaste. Myself Treni Purana, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Physiotherapy and Diagnostics. Today we are going to discuss about assessment of spinal cord injury. Assessment in the neurological physiotherapy is a process of collecting information about disordered movement patterns, underlying impairments, activity restrictions, and societal participation for the purpose of intervention planning and to help the therapist determine the best intervention. Assessment is arguably the most important step in the rehabilitation process, as our clinical reasoning is based on the information it provides and provides the basis for our decision making throughout the rehabilitation process. Treatment can only be as good as the assessment which it was based. So, in order for us to progress and manage our treatment plan and ensure we are identifying our patient's problems, assessment should be ongoing and continuous and should allow us to develop individualized, patient-centered goals and ultimately tailored treatment plan for the individual. We can use the framework of International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health to define the role and purpose of therapy for individuals with spinal cord injury. The ICF, introduced by the World Health Organization in 2011 and is revised version of International Classification of Impairment, Disability and Handicap. It defines components of health from perspective of body, individual and society. One of its primary purpose is to provide a unified and standard language for those working in the area of disability, which enhances clarity of communication and understanding of team roles with a spinal cord injury, multidisciplinary team, and challenges clinicians to think holistically. The assessment of an individual with a spinal cord injury is an important initial step in treatment. This step is not only important for the ICF to articulate the goals and purpose of therapy for individuals with a spinal cord injury. Example: the health condition is in spinal cord injury. Associated impairment is decreased muscle strength, which directly impacts on the ability to perform activities such as walking and moving. This in turn has implications for participation such as working, engaging in family life, and participating in community activities. Standardized assessment of impairments are similar to those used across all areas of physiotherapy, although there are some that are specific to spinal cord injury. Assessments of impairments are of limited interest to therapists without accompanying assessment of activity limitations to quantify a person's ability to move and complete purposeful motor tasks. Impairments, activity limitations, and participation restrictions are also all affected by environmental and personal factors such as support from family and employers, access to appropriate equipment, financial situation, and coping mechanisms. In the ICF frame, such environmental and personal influences are termed contextual factors. Ensure you are familiar with the ICF, its general use in clinical practice, and its use within the neurorehabilitation process, as it should provide the framework for assessment and treatment throughout the rehabilitation process. Reviewing the individual's medical chart and liaising with the medical team forms the initial element of any assessment, providing background data about the individual to assist us to determine if they are medically stable and ready for any therapy. Now, presenting conditions should be assessed by the knowing what can be the diagnosis. Types of spinal cord injury. It may be complete or incomplete or any specific syndrome. Level of spinal cord injury should be assessed. Example, C5 involvement. AIS level should be examined. Now collect history of presenting condition. Collect date of spinal cord injury. When did the spinal cord injury occur? How long ago was the spinal cord injury? Now collect the causes of spinal cord injury, which may be traumatic or non-traumatic. When did initial symptom appears? Were they sudden or did they come on gradually? This can have a bearing on what type of medical treatment options may be available to the patient. Now next, in the examination processes, progression of the condition should be assessed. In this, look for changes in the initial symptoms, which may provide some information about the behavior of the condition and some predictions of prognosis. What was the initial AIS level? Example, has there been a change in their AIS scale since admission following treatment too? Now, next in the assessment is results of specific investigations. Results of these investigations assist us in having an overall understanding of the patient's condition and provide us with specific information which allows us to predict the signs and symptoms that are likely to be present and assist us in planning our objective assessment. Now to go for medical management. In this, collect how has the condition been managed by the medical team? Did they require surgery or other medical investigation interventions? Example, ventilatory support or nutritional supports. Now go for medical observations, which provides information on how medically stable the patient is and on their suitability for therapy assessment. Other managements should be assessed, such as what other management is in place for the individual that your assessment may need to be scheduled around. Example, bladder and bowel management, nutritional needs. If a patient has not got adequate intake of this, could affect assessment. What other multidisciplinary team members are involved with this treatment? Now go for collection of previous therapy the patient taken. Has the individual previously been involved in therapy? What are their expectations of therapy? Now collect his surgical history and precautions. In this, type of procedure, date of surgery, any complications, any contraindications. Next, collect past medical history and medication of the patient with the comorbidities. Consider the impact of other comorbidities on treatment and the management. Now collect for patient's previous neurological condition. Has the patient had previous neurological condition which had an impact on their functional abilities and may be useful in predicting future outcomes. Now assess for special equipments. Does the individual require the use of specialized equipment for their management? Example, suction unit, special sitting, orthotics or mobility aids. Now assess for technology dependency of patient. Is the patient dependent on certain technologies either prior to this admission or new since this admission that you need to be aware of? Example, nasal gastric tube, AFOs or wheelchair. Now assess for previous surgeries. Has the patient had previous surgery separate to any spinal stabilization that could impact on assessment and has impacted on their function? Example, joint replacements, or any abdominal surgery. Now check for risk factors. Does the individual have specific risk factors that could be related to further neurological incident such as atrial fibrillation, hypertension, hypotension, high cholesterol, or maybe diabetes mellitus? Now collect patient's medical history under this: name, dosage, frequency of any medication, recognize any contraindications for the therapy, impact of related side effects on the treatment. Example, dantrolene can cause nausea. Now we are moving towards subjective assessment. The subjective assessment is used to provide a detailed picture of how the spinal cord injury affects the individual and is particular to each individual. Much of the database information might also be collected during the subjective assessment when not in a formal hospital or healthcare environment where detailed records are available. Always consider your verbal and non-verbal communication, as this will influence your interaction as will the environment. Understanding what the individual was able to do pre-spinal cord injury is vital in order to guide your objective assessment. Set appropriate realistic goals to guide treatment and maintain motivation. Next, collect his social history. By having an understanding of the individual's social situation, that will allow therapists to plan for discharge and to ensure adequate supports are in place both during and after their treatment. Now assess social situation of the patient. What is the individual's background? Example, occupation, family, hobbies, and recreations. Now assess for support structures. What support structures does the individual have from family, friends, colleagues, or dependents? Having an understanding of these structures is key when looking at your discharge plans. It may assist with determining what may be needed for that individual when their inpatient treatment is complete. Now, assess accommodation. What type of accommodation are they living in? Who are they living with? This is the key information for goal setting and when planning for discharge, as it necessary to assess for any stair requirement, step elevator, etc. Now assess for social service support. Was the individual previously linked in with any social service support such as public health nurse, home care support, meals on wheels? Now what may be the patient goals and expectations towards therapy? Goal setting is used to direct rehabilitation intervention towards a specific outcome. Therapists should always involve patients in setting goals for their therapy. Goals that are of value to patients will optimize their motivation for and participation in the therapy and enable them to achieve the highest possible level of independence, autonomy, and control. Now we are moving towards the objective assessment for spinal cord injury. The functional consequences of an acute spinal cord are variable. Therefore, the initial clinical presentation of an individual with an acute spinal cord injury is a key factor in determining triage, defining therapy, and predicting prognosis. The individual must be assessed with an accurate, consistent, and reproducible neurological assessment scale to define the neurological deficits and to facilitate communication. The comprehensive clinical assessment of the individual with a spinal cord injury should both accurately describe patient's neurological function. It may consist motor and sensory examination as well, and generally predict the future relative abilities and or impairment given the neurological status. Now, what is the assessment of impairments? Objectively, it is essential to assess impairments including weakness, sensation, tone, range of movement, and then impact that these impairments have at the activity and participation level for the individual with a spinal cord injury. Only impairments which are amenable to physiotherapy intervention are of real interest. Key impairments need to be linked to specific activity restrictions and participation limitations. Identification and treatment of impairments without linking them to activity limitation and participation restrictions risk wasting time, money, and resources on impairments which are of little consequences. Thank you.